One of the most expensive lessons many people learn is also one of the simplest. The only love worth keeping is the love that is freely returned. It sounds obvious, yet countless people spend years, sometimes decades, living as if the opposite were true. They believe love is something to be earned through patience, sacrifice, and endless understanding. They stay longer than they should. They forgive more than they should. They convince themselves that if they can just become a little kinder, a little more attractive, or a little more understanding, the other person will finally choose them. But that isn't love. It's a negotiation. Real love doesn't require a campaign. It doesn't ask you to prove your value over and over again. The right person may not be perfect, but they won't leave you constantly wondering where you stand. You won't have to decode every message, question every silence, or compete for their attention. Their actions will answer the questions your anxiety keeps asking. This is the uncomfortable truth many people resist. If someone genuinely wants you in their life, you will know. If they don't, you'll spend months inventing explanations for why they still haven't chosen you. Love is not supposed to feel like waiting outside a locked door, hoping someone will eventually decide to let you in. If love is meant to bring a sense of security, why do so many of us associate it with anxiety? Why do we mistake sleepless nights, racing thoughts, and emotional uncertainty for proof that our feelings are real? Perhaps because calm love feels unfamiliar to people who have spent their lives chasing emotional highs. Uncertainty creates anticipation. A delayed reply becomes an event. A small act of affection feels like a reward. We begin to crave these brief moments of reassurance, believing they are signs of deep passion, when in reality they are often nothing more than temporary relief from fear. There is a difference between loving someone and constantly worrying about losing them. Unfortunately, the two can become so tangled together that we no longer know where one ends and the other begins. That is why many relationships feel addictive rather than fulfilling. The emotional roller coaster convinces us that something important is happening, but intensity is not the same as intimacy. Chaos is not chemistry, and emotional exhaustion is certainly not evidence of true love. The greatest deception is that pain can feel meaningful. Yet a relationship that constantly leaves you anxious is not teaching you how to love. More often, it is teaching you how to survive. Most of us believe our ideas about love were formed when we started dating. In reality, they were shaped long before we ever held someone's hand. As children, we quietly observed what love looked like. We learned whether affection was freely given or carefully earned. We noticed whether mistakes were met with patience or rejection. Without realizing it, we built an invisible blueprint that would later guide our adult relationships. If love was consistent, we often grow up believing that closeness is safe. But if love was unpredictable, warm one day and distant the next, we may unconsciously begin to associate uncertainty with affection. We become strangely comfortable chasing people who never fully choose us, because that emotional landscape feels familiar. This isn't because we enjoy suffering. It's because the mind is drawn toward what it recognizes, even when what it recognizes is painful. That is why some people repeatedly fall for emotionally unavailable partners. They are not simply looking for love. They are trying to rewrite an old story, hoping that this time, someone who is difficult to reach will finally choose them. The tragedy is that while trying to heal yesterday's wounds, they unknowingly create tomorrow's heartbreak. The hardest truth to accept is not that someone didn't love us. It's that we spent so long trying to explain away the obvious. We called it a complicated relationship. We told ourselves they were simply confused, overwhelmed, or afraid of commitment. We became experts at making excuses for people who never made us a priority. We overlooked forgotten birthdays because they were busy. We accepted unanswered messages because they were going through a difficult time. We kept giving second chances until we could no longer remember where the first one ended. The painful reality is that love does not require endless interpretation. People who truly care about you don't leave you constantly guessing. They don't repeatedly make you question your value. They don't expect you to fight for the smallest expressions of affection. When you have to convince yourself that someone loves you despite everything they consistently do, you are no longer experiencing love. You are protecting an illusion that has become too painful to abandon. Sometimes the relationship ends long before we admit it. The only thing that remains alive is our hope that one day reality will finally match the story we've been telling ourselves. Walking away is often described as the hardest part of love. In reality, The hardest part is accepting that love cannot be forced. There comes a moment when every explanation has already been heard, every promise has already been made, and every chance has already been given. Staying beyond that point is no longer an act of loyalty. It becomes an act of abandoning yourself. Many people remain because they fear wasting the years they've invested. Others stay because they remember how beautiful things were in the beginning. Some stay because leaving means accepting that the future they imagine will never exist. But time invested is not a reason to invest even more in something that continues to hurt you. Choosing yourself is not selfish. It is the moment you stop asking another person to decide whether your heart deserves a place in their life. You cannot build peace with someone who keeps feeding your uncertainty, and you cannot heal in the same place where you are constantly being wounded. Sometimes love ends the day you realize your dignity is worth more than your hope. Perhaps the greatest surprise about healthy love is how ordinary it feels. It doesn't keep you awake every night wondering what went wrong. It doesn't make you rehearse conversations in your head or search for hidden meanings behind every message. It doesn't demand that you become someone else just to remain worthy of affection. Instead, it creates something many people mistake for boredom: peace. In the right relationship, you are not constantly trying to earn your place. You already have one. Both people move toward each other, not because one is chasing while the other is running, but because they have freely chosen the same direction. Real love is not built on sacrifice alone. It is built on mutual care, mutual respect, and the quiet confidence that neither person has to beg for what should be given willingly. Perhaps growing wiser is not learning how to love harder. Perhaps it is learning to stop offering your heart to people who have already shown they cannot hold it. The day you no longer confuse emotional struggle with romance is the day love begins to feel less like a battle and more like coming home.